In the year 1119, 9 French knights made a vow that would accidentally revolutionize the global economy. They had no idea they were about to invent modern banking. They thought they were just trying to keep pilgrims from getting robbed. Picture this. You're a medieval peasant who's saved up for years to make the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. You've got a pouch full of silver coins, your life savings, and you're about to embark on a journey of over 2,000 miles through bandit-infested roads, across treacherous seas, and through hostile territories. What are the odds you'll make it there with your money intact? Pretty much zero. This was the reality facing thousands of Christian pilgrims in the 12th century, and it's exactly the problem that a small group of warrior monks called the Knights Templar set out to solve. What they created in response wasn't just a solution for medieval travelers, it was the foundation of every bank, credit card, and international wire transfer you use today. The story begins in the aftermath of the First Crusade. By 1099, Christian forces had captured Jerusalem, but the journey there remained incredibly dangerous. Pilgrims were easy targets for bandits who knew they carried substantial amounts of money for their journey. Even if you survived the 1,000-mile trek to the Holy Land, you might arrive penniless. Enter Hugues de Payens and his 8 companions. These French knights approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem with a proposal. They would form a military order dedicated to protecting pilgrims on the dangerous roads to the holy sites. The king was so impressed with their mission that he gave them quarters in a wing of his palace, built on what was believed to be the site of Solomon's temple. This is how they got their name, the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or more simply, the Knights Templar. But here's where the story gets interesting. The Templars quickly realized that protecting pilgrims with swords and horses could only go so far. The real solution to the pilgrimage problem wasn't military, it was financial. Why should pilgrims carry money at all? What if there was a way to deposit money safely in one place and retrieve it in another? This wasn't just innovative thinking, it was revolutionary. In medieval Europe, banking as we know it didn't exist. Most people never handled money beyond their local village. International finance was virtually unthinkable for ordinary people. The closest thing to banking was done by Jewish moneylenders and Italian merchants, but their services were limited and often viewed with suspicion by the church. The Templars, however, had several advantages that made them perfect accidental bankers. First, they were a religious order, which meant people trusted them implicitly. Second, they were rapidly establishing a network of commanderies across Europe and the Middle East. Third, they had a unified command structure and standardized procedures that could work across vast distances. Here's how their system worked, and it's going to sound remarkably familiar. A pilgrim would arrive at a Templar commandery in, say, Paris. He would deposit his money with the Templars and receive in return a letter written in a coded script that only the Templars could read. This letter specified the amount deposited and contained encrypted information to prevent forgery. The pilgrim could then travel light, carrying only this piece of parchment. When he arrived in Jerusalem, he would present his letter to the Templar treasury there. After verifying the code, the Templars would give him his money back, minus a small service fee, of course. The pilgrim had essentially made the world's first international wire transfer, and that coded letter was humanity's first traveler's check. But the Templars didn't stop there. They realized they were sitting on something much bigger than a service for pilgrims. Kings and nobles also needed to move large sums of money across long distances, whether to fund military campaigns, pay ransoms, or conduct international trade. Soon, the Templar network was handling the finances of entire kingdoms. King Louis VII of France used Templar services to fund the Second Crusade. When Richard the Lionheart needed money for the Third Crusade, he turned to the Templars. The order became the preferred bank for European nobility. Handling everything from international loans to currency exchange. They were essentially running a medieval multinational bank, with branches from London to Jerusalem. Their accounting methods were surprisingly sophisticated. The Templars maintained detailed records of all transactions kept in duplicate books at different locations. They developed double-entry bookkeeping independently of the Italian merchants who are usually credited with the innovation. They even created an early form of checking accounts. If you deposited money with the Templars in London, you could write what amounted to checks against that account to pay debts in Paris, and the Templars would handle the settlement between their commanderies. The scale of their operation was staggering. By the 13th century, the Templars operated over 9,000 properties across Europe and the Middle East. They had become one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world. They had assets that would be worth hundreds of billions in today's money. They owned entire islands, controlled shipping routes, and their Paris temple served as the royal treasury of France. But here's what made their system truly revolutionary. It was the first time in human history that you could separate money from its physical form on an international scale. Before the Templars, moving wealth meant physically transporting gold or silver. The Templars proved that money could be information, a concept so fundamental to modern finance that we take it completely for granted. They also pioneered the concept of credit in ways that wouldn't be seen again for centuries. The Templars would issue loans against future deposits, essentially creating money that didn't physically exist yet. They understood that the total value of their network was greater than the sum of gold and silver in their vaults. Their encryption methods were remarkably advanced for the time. Each commandery had its own unique codes and seals, and important financial documents required multiple authentication methods. They understood that trust in their system depended entirely on their ability to prevent fraud. The Templars also solved the medieval equivalent of currency exchange problems. A pilgrim depositing French livres in Paris might need to withdraw Byzantine gold coins in Constantinople. The Templars maintained detailed exchange rates and could handle these conversions seamlessly. But perhaps most importantly, they created the first truly international financial network. While Italian banking houses like the Medici get credit for international banking, they came centuries later. The Templars were moving money from England to Cyprus, from Germany to the Holy Land, with a speed and efficiency that wouldn't be matched until the modern era. Their success, however, contained the seeds of their destruction. By the early 14th century, the Templars had become too powerful, too wealthy, and too independent for comfort. They answered only to the Pope, owned vast territories, and their financial network made them effectively immune to economic pressure. For a king like Philip IV of France, who owed enormous debts to the Templars, this was an intolerable situation. Philip's solution was as brutal as it was effective. On Friday, October 13, 1307, which is why Friday the 13th is considered unlucky, he ordered the simultaneous arrest of every Templar in France. The charges were heresy, but everyone knew the real motivation was financial. Philip wanted to seize Templar assets and eliminate his debts in one stroke. The persecution of the Templars spread across Europe. Under torture, many knights confessed to various heresies, though these confessions were almost certainly false. In 1312, Pope Clement V officially dissolved the order. The last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, was burned at the stake in 1314, reportedly cursing King Philip and Pope Clement as he died. Eerily, both men died within the year. But here's the fascinating part. You can't destroy an idea, especially one as useful as international banking. When the Templar network collapsed, its innovations didn't disappear. They scattered across Europe like seeds, taking root in new institutions and new forms. Many former Templars fled to other countries, taking their financial knowledge with them. Some joined other military orders, like the Knights Hospitaller, who quickly adopted Templar banking methods. Others went into private business, founding some of Europe's first private banks. The Italian banking houses of the Renaissance, the Medici, the Fuggers, the Lombards, built their empires on foundations laid by the Templars. The letters of credit that financed the age of exploration were direct descendants of Templar financial instruments. When Christopher Columbus needed funding for his voyage to the Americas, he used banking methods that could trace their lineage back to those 9 knights in Jerusalem. The influence went far beyond banking. The Templars had proven that international commerce was possible on a scale previously unimaginable. Their network had connected Europe to the Middle East, creating trade routes and commercial relationships that outlasted the Crusades. The global economy that we live in today began with their revolutionary insight that money could be information, and information could travel faster and more safely than gold. Even specific modern practices can be traced back to the Templars. The concept of a bank check comes directly from Templar letters of credit. International wire transfers work on the same basic principle the Templars established. Deposit money in one location, send coded information to another location, withdraw equivalent value. Credit cards and digital banking are just technological evolutions of the same fundamental idea. The Templars also established principles of banking that remain crucial today. They understood that financial institutions must maintain absolute trust to function. They knew that security and fraud prevention were essential. They grasped that a financial network becomes more valuable as it grows larger, what economists now call network effects. Perhaps most importantly, they proved that financial innovation could come from unexpected places. These weren't merchants or economists who invented modern banking. They were warrior monks trying to solve a practical problem for religious pilgrims. Their story reminds us that breakthrough innovations often come from people who aren't constrained by conventional thinking about how things should work. The parallels to modern financial innovation are striking. Just as the Templars bypassed the limitations of physical money by creating information-based transfers, modern innovations like cryptocurrency are attempting to bypass the limitations of traditional banking by creating entirely digital money. Blockchain technology, which underlies Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, is essentially a new way of solving the same trust and verification problems the Templars faced with their encrypted letters. The story of the Templars also illustrates how financial innovation and political power are inextricably linked. The Templars became so powerful through their financial innovations that they posed a threat to traditional authority, a pattern we see repeated throughout history. The modern tech giants who control digital payment systems face similar tensions with governments today. But there's an even deeper lesson here about how necessity drives innovation in ways that can transform civilization. The Templars weren't trying to revolutionize the global economy. They were just trying to keep pilgrims from getting robbed. They solved an immediate practical problem, and in doing so, they accidentally created tools that would reshape human society. This happens more often than you might think. The internet was created to help researchers share information and to create a communication network that could survive nuclear attack. Nobody set out to create Amazon or social media or the gig economy. GPS was designed for military navigation, not for helping you find the nearest pizza place. Many of the most transformative innovations in history have been happy accidents, created by people solving immediate problems who had no idea they were changing the world. The Knights Templar prove that you don't need to understand the full implications of your innovation to change history. Those 9 knights in Jerusalem couldn't have imagined credit cards or online banking or the global financial system that moves trillions of dollars around the world every day. They just saw pilgrims getting robbed and thought, there has to be a better way. Their story also reminds us that innovation often comes from combining existing elements in new ways rather than inventing something entirely from scratch. The Templars didn't invent money, or writing, or codes, or long-distance travel. They just combined these existing elements in a way that nobody had thought of before. Sometimes the most revolutionary innovations are also the most obvious, once someone thinks of them. Today, as we stand on the brink of new financial innovations, from cryptocurrency to digital central bank currencies to peer-to-peer payment systems, it's worth remembering that the foundation of it all was laid by a group of medieval knights who just wanted to help people travel safely. Every time you use a credit card, make a wire transfer, or check your bank balance online, you're using a system that has its roots in a 12th century solution to medieval highway robbery. The next time someone tells you that the modern financial system is too complex, too abstract, or too removed from real human needs, remember the Knights Templar. They proved that the most sophisticated financial instruments in the world all began with a simple human desire: to help people move safely from one place to another. They proved that the most sophisticated financial instruments in the world all began with a simple human desire: to help people move safely from one place to another, carrying their hopes and dreams and life savings without fear. In the end, that might be the most important lesson of all. Behind every financial innovation, no matter how complex or abstract it seems, there are real people trying to solve real problems. The Knights Templar accidentally invented modern banking, but what they intentionally created was something far more valuable: a way for ordinary people to pursue their dreams without fear. And maybe that's what the best financial innovations still do today. They don't just move money around, they help people live better lives.